The introduction of new art such as realism, modernism, and cubism in the late 19th to early 20th centuries due to social and political reasons. By the 19th and 20th centuries, art had changed greatly since the earlier times when artists focused more on classicism, individualism, and humanism. The Last Supper, David, Sistine Chapel, and School of Athens did not relate to late 19th century or early 20th century art because they did not have themes dealing with modernism, realism, or cubism, and dealt more with themes dealing with church or the Enlightenment. The progression of art into the late 19th to early 20th centuries. Modernism was a philosophical movement that arose a far-reaching transformation in Europe and the Western world in the late 19th to 20th centuries. The development of modern industrial societies, along with the rapid growth of cities after World War I, were major factors that shaped modernism. The theme of modernism rejected Enlightenment thinking. Also, many modernists rejected any religious belief. Modernism described the creation of those who felt that traditional art was becoming outdated in the new economic, social, and political environment of the newly emerging industrialized world. Modernism is thought to be a socially progressive trend of thought that affirms the power of human beings to create, improve, and reshape their environment with the help of experimentation, science, and technology. Some believe that modernism was developed out of Romanticism's revolt against the effects of the industrialized revolution and bourgeois values. Many people believe many different dates for when modernism started, but most people think it became a popular theme during the late 19th century. It is thought that Seurat's painting A Sunday Afternoon on the island of La Grande Gâte was the first modern painting due to the dot-like movements that he used in the piece. It is believed that the explosion time of modern art was from the early 20th century up to the 1930s. Modernism is greatly related to being revolutionary and anti-traditional. Pablo Picasso and Henri Matisse were very popular modern artists and created a great shock due to their rejection of traditional perspectives in the structuring of their paintings. Many people consider Pablo Picasso the best and most famous painter from the overall theme of modernism. He is well known for many pieces that involve complex figures and shapes. Modernism was a very important theme of art in the late 19th to early 20th centuries and still continues to influence many pieces of art up to this day. Realism is defined as the attempt to represent subject matter truthfully without artificiality and avoiding artistic conventions, impossible, exotic, and supernatural elements. Realism was a term which was developed in the 19th century which was used to describe the work of Gustave Courbet and other painters who rejected idealizations and wanted to focus on daily life. Realism was an artistic movement that began in France during the 1850s right after the 1848 Revolution. Realists typically rejected Romanticism, which was known for dominating French art and literature during the 18th century. Realism revolted against exaggerated emotionalism and sought to portray real and typical contemporary people and situations with truth and accuracy. Realist works showed all classes and their situations in ordinary life and sometimes reflected the changes brought by industrial and commercial revolutions. A realist movement took place which began in the late 19th century as a reaction to Romanticism. The painters from the movement used laborers and common workers participating in real activities for their paintings. Jean-Baptiste Camille Corot and Gustave Courbet were the most well-known realist artists. Edouard Manet was also another leading realist who showed a very different style in painting that would soon give way to Impressionism. Realism was started off in Europe with a new cultural note. Realists no longer wanted to portray heroic or colorful actions, instead they wanted to focus on the opposite. People during the realist time period did not want to risk any further delusion with citizens and rather wanted to show what they believed was real and could be seen and felt. Overall, realism was a very important theme for art during the late 19th to early 20th centuries in Europe. Cubism was an early 20th century avant-garde art movement which was pioneered by Georges Seurat and Pablo Picasso, which revolutionized European painting and sculpture. Cubism has been considered the most influential art movement of the 20th century. The three-dimensional form in the late works of Paul Cézanne is known for being the primary influence that led to Cubism. In Cubism pieces, objects resemble to an abstract form. Instead of viewing objects from one point, the artist analyzes the subject with multiple viewpoints and with a greater context. Cubism's main features are geometry, simultaneity, otherwise known as multiple views, and passage. Cubism was aimed to visualize a fourth dimension. Cubism arose out of the need to define and represent the new modern reality, which included many inventions, cultural diversity, technology, and scientific discoveries. Cultural interactions between Eastern and Western Europe and the primitive and the industrialized world also helped shape Cubism. Cubism is known to have begun in 1907 with Pablo Picasso's painting Les Demoiselles d'Avignon. By 1911, Picasso was recognized as the inventor of Cubism. Cubism has many complex and contemporary views due to the various depictions of space, mass, time, and volume by Cubist artists. Europe's discovery of foreign cultures such as Africa and Native America, where arts similar to those of Cubism were well known, helped increase the popularity of Cubism during the early 20th century. The terms analytical and synthetic emerged during the 1930s to describe Cubist pieces. Synthetic cubism was used to describe decorative shapes and collages, while analytical cubism was used to describe geometrical forms. Cubism affected paintings, sculptures, and architecture in early 20th century and also had a great impact on modern art today. Modernism, realism, and cubism all connect in different ways. Modernism and realism have more in common because they both intended to show real life and what everyday human life was like in relation to the modern times. Realism and Cubism contrast because Cubism focuses more on dimensions in art, while realism is more reliant of expressing real-life situations. Modernism and Cubism are similar in more ways because they both had similar themes and were influenced by the new technology of the time period. All three forms of art, modernism, realism, and cubism, were important to European culture during the late 19th to early 20th centuries and were each influenced in different ways by the political and social differences of those time periods. These forms of art are still important and help shape modern art the way it is today.